How's it going? I had a series of dreams last night. One of them was pretty stupid and kind of pointless. The one after, though, was really interesting and very, very much a puzzle. And I'd like to share it. Before I get into that, though, I just want to briefly mention a couple of Mandela effects or possible Mandela effects. I recently shared a video in the community post of a guy who actually was very much a skeptic in previous videos on that subject, but that is no longer the case. And that is very fascinating because, in my opinion, it's impossible to be one. If, in my opinion, people who deny the phenomenon or think there is some kind of explanation for it in the brain, they're literally delusional. It just doesn't make any sense to me how anyone could see it that way, but to each their own. We know better. Our community knows better than that. But yeah, he was talking about a few different things, international topics, which is really good to bring up because, a lot of these changes are associated with American pop culture and logos, but it's clearly not that. It's clearly very much international. And he goes into the geography changes, right? He mentions the placement of New Zealand. He mentions Cuba being twice the size that we remember and much closer to Mexico. It was always kind of close to Florida, but if you look at Cuba now, it's really close to Cancun. Like, it's so damn close, you can almost see it, which doesn't make any sense. The prior reality, the um, Cuba was felt a million miles from Mexico. It was deep in the Caribbean, way out there, and that's not the case anymore. New Zealand, a similar kind of situation. It is way out of the way. Used to be a lot closer to Australia, things like that. Yeah, and he mentioned some soda in Brazil that was popular in Brazil that never existed apparently. And then he also mentions the anatomy stuff, which I discussed over and over on this channel, with the exception of one thing that I should have brought up and I haven't. That is the skull. Okay, I did talk about in prior videos the orbital bones behind the eyes that did not exist before. There was no bones behind the eyes. But what's even more fascinating about the skull is now that there's these two notches behind it. You can feel them. And then the skull is not one solid piece. It's like dozens of pieces fused together. And that just makes absolutely no sense. That's just absolutely ridiculous. That was absolutely not the case in any way, shape, or form whatsoever. So yeah, it's pretty fascinating. And he mentions the Taj Mahal. Now that one I'm on the fence. I'm not 100% sure about this one. So one of my subscribers sent me an article telling me that it had a golden dome, but that the British essentially dismantled the gold in the early 1800s. Possible. For me, I looked at pictures of the Taj Mahal recently, and something doesn't feel right to me. And it's not just about the golden dome, it's actually the appearance of the entire structure feels completely off to me. And no matter how much I look at it, I can't quite put my finger on what it is exactly. I couldn't tell you. But my friend Teresa doesn't think that way. She's absolutely adamant that it did have a golden dome, and she remembers very clearly that it did. And I do remember watching a documentary about a from like the early 2000s about a guy talking about how the gold was placed on the dome and how it was built and how difficult it was to build and etc etc etc. Anyway, I'm kind of in the limbo with that one. That's kind of a gray area for me. I'm not sure. The skull though, and the anatomy stuff, that's undoubtedly, I'm 100% certain on those. It's completely ludicrous beyond belief that the skull would have all these separate different pieces. Makes no sense. Makes just about as much sense as the liver having two lobes. Anyway, it wouldn't surprise me if, we were put to sleep and then switch to another body, and we're living vicariously between another world, between a sleeping body and this appearance or the illusion of a waking body. And I do think if one passes away here, then that sleeping body passes away too. They're linked together. It's not separate things. But if they did split consciousness, then it's if they split it and had the consciousness transfer to a reality they can control, where they have supercomputers predicting everything and every move everyone's going to make, then they control the narrative of everything here. It's much easier that way if you shift into a reality that they created instead of a reality that was already a creation. If it's something they created that we're in, they control the reality. I don't know. Anyway, maybe this has something to do with my dream. Give me a sec. It's absolutely hot as hell in here. So the dream, I was a security guard actually, and we were in some kind of building. This building was really strange because it had these like sections with completely abandoned massive rooms that were completely dark and pitch black. But it also had sections that were lit up, full of activity and full of people, which is interesting because that's exactly how the Northrop place that I literally worked in, it's exactly what it was like. It had places just like that. And I'm walking around and I see other security. And the other security seems like they don't want me there. They are really wanting to kick me out. And so they proceed to try to do that, but I walk away and I escape them. And I find myself in a very interesting, gigantic room. This room had 4 massive lasers. Lasers attached to some large robotic arms. The robotic arms were like moving. They were all like moving in concentric circles. So there's 4 lasers. They were about 20 feet tall. They were absolutely massive and wide. One was moving like this, one was moving like this, and the other 2 were moving in a different way. And they were all shining a light into something in the middle of the room, which I couldn't see. And I do know lasers are used in manufacturing, and this kind of looked like a manufacturing plant, except There's something more to it. There's something a lot more to this than that. And it was kind of an amazing, beautiful sight to see. But I eventually left there and I found another room that was really strange. There was little halls or little staircases on all sides of me. One, and they all had different gradients of steepness. One was like a really steep staircase. One almost looked like a slide. It wasn't even hardly a staircase. One was like the opposite of steep, and there were just these different gradients of steps, and all these, and they're all colored blue, like this light blue color. And I walk up one of them, and I just see a bunch of offices everywhere, all kinds of activity, people. And then I leave, and there's these two older ladies. And the two older ladies are sitting there laughing at me. Laughing and laughing and laughing, and I'm just staring at them. And that's when that security comes back. That's when the security kicks me out. So anyway, guys, what are your thoughts? What are these giant lasers? I think they're building something extraordinary. I think that that's what was being shown to me, that there is a structure, possibly some kind of a computer chip, some kind of a, they're building something that was extraordinary, though. It was interesting to see.